Hey, everybody, Peek out here in Singapore, and I have another fabulous young lady that I want to introduce you all to because um, she has some amazing advice as far as parenting. I like the way she approaches all of her child advice, and I really enjoy speaking with her and answering all the questions that she has on Facebook. She's a little more active on Facebook from what I know, but the young lady's name is Domari Dixon, and she's based in Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken, so I'm actually really excited for, hey, what's up?
I did
Yay!
it!
I'm so glad. You're in Baltimore, right?
I'm in Virginia now.
You're in
Yes.
Virginia. Whereabouts in Virginia are you?
King George, Virginia.
Oh my goodness,
So yeah,
seriously? That's
live.
near West Point, right?
I live by the farms. It's near Dahlgren Army
Dahlgren.
Base.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's really in the
It's out of the
country.
way, I know that much, but
Yeah.
yeah. Why do I want to say it's near West Point though? Is it near
I
West
don't
Point?
even I don't even know where West Point is.
King
So I don't want
George.
to
What
go
else is
out.
around you?
It's near
Prince Edward County?
Fredericksburg.
Fredericksburg. Okay, you're in Nova.
Yeah.
You're in Northern
Yeah.
Virginia. I got you.
Northern
All right.
Virginia. Yeah. She's
Cool.
like, I
Okay,
know, I
yeah.
know, I know.
Um, yes, I lived there for a very, very long time and then I left. So, yeah.
Yes, I plan on being here for a very
Hmm.
short time and then I'll
Oh,
leave.
where are you headed to?
I
Back
have no
to
idea.
Baltimore? Oh, cool. So, does that mean that your job will maybe take you somewhere else, or what do you think?
So now that I have the flexibility to go where I want to go, it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like I don't have to move back to Baltimore because I was there for the
Uh-huh.
job. And
Oh,
so now
okay.
I'm like, where do we want to go, kids? I don't know.
So tell
So,
me about your kids real quick, your family life a little bit, because you are a parenting expert, and I love that.
yes.
So I'm trying to figure out, what is the background? How did you come into that? And what is your, if you don't mind, your family situation at the moment?
No, I don't mind. So I have four kids.
Hmm.
My oldest is 17.
Hmm.
I know she just finished high school, so I'm going through this transition, and it's a bit of a struggle. Like,
How old's the
I feel like
youngest then?
my youngest is 3, so
Oh, yeah, okay.
big
You got
gap.
the
Yeah, so
whole
I've got
spectrum of.
toddler, teen, and then I have two boys
Uh-huh.
that are 7 and 9. So I've got every age group. I'm dealing with so many different things, but it's fun, right? And it's never
Yeah,
boring.
absolutely.
So
It's never
yes, I
boring.
have four kids of my own,
Hmm.
and have experienced so many different things. But really, part of what started me on this journey is watching what happened with my oldest,
Okay.
and seeing how the parenting style that I chose, which was how I was raised, impacted her, right? And
Okay.
it wasn't a good thing. And I was like, ooh, I don't want to do this with my other one. So let me try to
Yeah.
fix this and get this right.
Okay.
I also have been working in education for over 15 years. I started as a teacher, then I moved to an instructional coach, and then I have a consulting business where I work with a lot of teachers and school leaders, but I also work with parents in that capacity.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
saw so many times, like even when I was a teacher and we'd have conferences and I'm like, hey, your kid's acting like this is what's happening. So many
Yeah.
parents would say, like, I don't know what to do. Like, okay, like what do you want me to do? And I'm like, so after hearing that over and over and over again, it broke my heart because, I know that as a parent, you never want to feel like I don't know how to help my kids. I don't know
Disempower.
what
Yeah,
else to do,
exactly.
right? And you know that
Hmm.
other people are judging you like, what kind of mom are you? What do you mean?
Uh-huh.
But then I realized, Pika, that nobody's telling these parents what to do, right? We're all like, oh, don't do
There's
this,
no
don't do
handbook. We're
that.
all winging it. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, okay. So I realized just like a lot of the work that I was doing in schools was around behavior management. So going in and
Right.
helping teachers who couldn't get their classrooms under control, like how to do
Classroom
that.
management. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And it's the same thing. And then I'd come home and use those same strategies with my kids. Like,
Okay.
oh, wait, this works at home too. So if it
Nice.
works for the classroom and it works for
Hmm.
me at home, like parents need to know, like, here's
People
what
need
we're
to
doing with
know.
their kids in
Absolutely.
school.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Like, here, do these things at home and watch what happens. So that's
Love
where
it.
I am now, just kind of bridging that gap and being able to share with parents, like, hey, here are some research based, right? Like, based on
Yeah.
how kids' brains work, where they are developmentally, here are some things that you can do to make your family life so much easier.
And you've
So,
field tested them too because you've been teaching the teachers and you've been using it at home, so it's definitely field tested and
yes,
they have a success rate. So I'm curious,
yes.
because you said you started off as a teacher, was there a specific age group that you taught while you were teaching?
So I started with high school. with
Okay.
the big babies, and then I moved down to middle school. And as a coach, I've worked with teachers who teach pre-K all the way to 12th grade.
Got
So
it.
no
Got it.
college level, but all the babies, because even in high school, they're still babies. They're just my
No,
big
definitely.
babies.
They definitely turn into babies when they don't get their way, don't they?
Yes. Yes. And
But the reason I asked that is because I was helping with a project, marketing wise. They opened international school, and I was trying to think of things that I could do that was different from all the other schools here in Singapore. And what I was doing was, because I have a psych background, I went ahead and put together like freebie checklists for the ages of 6 through 10 of behavioral, cognitive, physical milestones that you would generally see, because as a teacher, what parents want to know is, you know what to do with this age group because you've seen it like 5, 10 times, 10 years in a row, whatever. So I
yes.
like that you said that you started off as a teacher because you know firsthand what you've seen before, and then you have this range of children in the house as well, and you know what one went through may not happen for the next 2 or 3, but you know what to expect a little bit. The first one's a hard one.
Yeah. And people always laugh, like, you have 4 kids? I'm like, yeah, I screwed the first one up. So I had to keep having them to make sure, like, look, I can do this. I can do this. And I say that jokingly because my daughter is absolutely amazing, but I don't take credit for that, right? I'm like, thank you, God, because that was all you. I was like you said, I was winging it, right? I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
But the other 3, like, all right, we got this. We got this.
Yeah.
So
I'm curious, with your teaching background, your coaching background, how did you decide to kind of package this together? It's not an easy thing. And where there are lots of parents who would love the advice, there are people like, I know what I'm doing. Can you just stay in your own lane? Like, I know there's that many people out there too. So how did you decide to package it up and position yourself so that people would be willing to receive? Because you are here to help.
I am, and everyone's not willing to receive, right? And I think that's something that I had to accept. So I'm not one of those people who someone's complaining about the kids and I'm like, well, you know, what you should do is, right? Because I know, and I think this is kind of like being able to wear all these hats. I know as a mom how it feels for someone to criticize you and your parent. Like, it doesn't feel good. Even if they're saying they're trying to help. I'm like, what are you trying to say? Like, I'm a bad mom? Like, no, I'm not trying to. So I'm not going to force my opinions and force what I know on anyone. But I want people to know that, yes, I'm available. And just by me saying that and having conversations, people started coming to me and asking questions. And at first it was like, how do I help my kids in school? And parents wanted me to say things like, oh, get them a tutor, or, oh, do this extra homework time. And I'm like, it really has nothing to do with that, right? Like, what's happening is there's these emotional issues that they're not being taught in school. You're not really handling at home. So that's manifesting in all these other ways. So until we handle this, like, they're not going to be doing their homework, right? Or they're going to be acting crazy in school.
Yeah, they're going to be distracted or something,
So as I get more parents who are coming to me asking for support around school, I'm like, we're missing the big picture. We as in educators in the school system, because there's so many things. And there's a shift now around dealing with more social emotional things in schools, which is awesome. But there was that big gap where it's just like, okay, we want teach. The foundation was missing. And I'm like, okay, you can keep throwing all this stuff at them. And so I'm like, okay, I have these skills, right? Like, I can teach it to parents. I know developmentally, like, what was appropriate. A lot of parents were stressing themselves out. And I'm like, no, this is exactly what she's supposed to be doing at 3. Like, she's doing her 3-year-old thing. And so being able to help parents understand, like, it's not my kid. My kid's not out to get me, right? They're not terrible. They're not trying to manipulate me. They're not trying to,
they don't need medication. They're just being kids.
I know. Like, it's okay. And how we deal with that. So a lot of the work is really not, I tell parents all the time, like, they're like, you want me to fix your kids? We're going to start with you. Right? We're going to start with helping you figure out, like, this is what I need to change so that I can work with my kid and understand my kid and really teach them. So that's what I do, right?
Yeah.
Like, as a parenting coach, like, is there just a set system? And I'm like, no. One, because each child is different. Each family is different. Each family should have different goals, which is kind of where we start. Because doing this work, I realized a lot of parents don't take the time to think through, here's what I want my family to be able to do. Here's who I want my kids to be when they grow up. And here's what I need to be doing now to get them there. So that's like we actually are starting that training soon, like writing out your family mission statement. Like
Mm-hmm.
all these huge organizations and companies can tell you, here's our mission and here's how
That's
we're
the
going to
plan.
get there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? And
Mm-hmm.
so every day, like
Yes.
when they're having these meetings on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, they're like, how are we getting towards this goal? But as
Hey,
families, like
Lynn.
we don't do that, right? We're like,
No, and we
I'm
should. We
just
don't
kind of
think of it like
going from
that.
day to day. Well, because it's
Yeah.
so stressful in the day to day, like you can get caught up, like, okay, my kids didn't die today. I fed them. I may or may not
Success.
have
No.
bathed them, right? Like, I did it. And now let me do it again the next day. So it's really working to help moms break out of that day-to-day mindset. And
Surviving.
also,
Yeah.
yeah, and also really helping them realize like you have to define success for yourself and not let your mom or your dad or your grandparents or the school or your church or
Mm-hmm.
anyone else define that for you. Like you
And
have to
everyone has an
know.
opinion. Yep.
Everyone. And so what happens is parents will be like, well, I feel so bad because I just talked to one yesterday and she was talking about how, she felt so bad because she started homeschooling and yesterday we didn't do anything. And I'm like, so why do you feel bad? She's like, well, the kids were in their pajamas. Well, why do you feel bad about that? Well,
Right.
because I just feel like somebody might be judging. Girl, if you don't stop caring
Inside
about
your
what
house?
somebody else, right? Like, first of all, who even
Who has
saw you?
cameras?
Like,
Uh-huh.
nobody saw you, but it's just that idea of I'm not doing enough and I'm not good enough.
It's
And
not
until
like
you have,
school. But that was not the point either.
but a lot of homeschooling parents are like, I'm like, you're trying to do school at home. That's
Mhm.
not that's not what you have to do.
No.
But it's really just saying like, guys, if you know, like every day, like this is my goal, right? And because I've
Yeah.
done this, this, and this today, I'm on track. Or,
Yeah.
I kind of have to tweak some things because today I was off the mark. And that just happened to me a couple of days ago where I had a meltdown. Like, people are like, you're a parenting coach,
You're
so you must
allowed.
have perfect kids.
Hello?
No. And you must never yell. No. Yes. So I think like 2 days ago, I did all the things that I told parents not to do. Right? Like I was yelling at my kids. I threatened. I took away the PlayStation. It was wrong. Right. But I think like being real and being in that
Yeah.
place, like I know when I'm working with parents, like I don't expect anyone to be perfect because it's just not realistic. And I understand that struggle. But I also understand like we can still teach our kids from that place of that mistake, right? So I had to go
Yes.
back and
Yes.
apologize to my kids.
To
And I had
readdress
to,
it. Mm-hmm.
right, I had to go back and make it right, which is a skill that people need to learn. And everyone
Yes.
doesn't feel comfortable practicing that. Like I'll do it for my husband or I'll do it for my friends, but for my kids, like apologize to
I
my
don't need
kids.
to. I'm
Why
grown.
would I do that? Right. Like, why would I do that? So it really is. I'm having a ton of fun. My clients, not so much all the time, but doing the mindset shifts, right? And just
Yes.
challenging them. And I'm honest. I'm like, hey guys, for the first month, you're not going to like me very much because
Mm-mm.
I'm going to be in your butt. Like,
It's going to be uncomfortable. Yeah.
it is, but making you think differently because if I allow you to think the way that you've always thought, like nothing's going to change. Right? And you're coming to me because
Exactly.
you want something to change. So they end up loving me eventually. But, in the beginning, it's a little rough because
It's a love-hate relationship in the beginning. I mean,
is.
I understand though. I had another young lady on here maybe last week or something, and she is a dog trainer, and she's saying, I don't train the dogs first. I train the owners first so that they understand how they approach the dog and the dog receives their energy. It's the same thing with kids. Like, and we made that mention back then as well. So yeah, the parents have to kind of take a step back and be like, I could be egging them on and not even realize it.
Yeah.
And it could be coming from a place of I'm doing what I've seen 1,000 times because my parents did it.
And that's really, so I like to say that I help the moms break these generational curses and like stop this toxic parenting, because a lot of them will come and say like, well, my mom did the same thing. Like my mom always yelled and I don't want to do this. Like I hated it when she did it to me and I don't want to be that mom to my kids, but I don't know how to stop it. Like, what do I do differently?
It's like a fallback rut. You try and it doesn't work, so you go back to what you know worked at the time because it upset you, so you did it again. I'm going to tell you all a secret.
Here's how I'm going.
The first kid I raised that was not related to me, as in like I raised my brothers, my cousins, we all did that together, right? But my stepdaughter and my stepson, I turned into my mother. And I'm not saying that my mom was good or bad or whatever, but I did what she did. I flipped out and I was like, how dare you speak to me that way? And why are you acting this way? And because I said so, and all of that.
Yeah.
And when I realized that it,
like,
when I realized that it was like walling them up and then they would not come speak to me afterwards, and then I'd have to break it down and start all over again, I realized I was giving myself more work, basically. So I had to start at the beginning and kind of explain to them why I want this done a certain way, and then let them try the other way and see why it doesn't work, and then they'll eventually come around. But at least I realized that they need to feel like they matter and they have a say in how they do things as well. So, man, that was rough. And when my mom said, you know, you won't understand till you have kids, yeah, I definitely called her up and I cried and I was like, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. It was terrible.
I'm so sorry. No, I get it. I'm so sorry for all those times. And you don't realize it. And you think that, but it also helps you realize, like, she was just doing, you want to come up? That one that just woke up. She was just doing the best that she knew how.
Hi.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, it's early. I'm sorry.
Yeah, she's just waking up. But your mom was just doing the best that she knew how.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
So I tell her, like,
now I know that. I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah, and then there might be a method to her madness, but there's so much that we do as parents that, you know, we have these ideas, like what you said, like, oh, that was so disrespectful, right? Or don't talk to me that way. And until you stop and think, like,
stuff like, you better watch your tone.
Who are you talking to? That's who are you talking to?
Who do you think you're talking to like that? Exactly, yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, so let me just stop and think, like, how do I really want them to answer that question? It's like, that's a setup. There's no right way to answer. And if you don't say anything, you don't hear me talking to you? Hello?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I did. My stepdaughter would wall up and she looked like deer caught in the headlights, like, what do you want me to say? And I could see it on her face, but I wanted a reaction out of her. So I wouldn't stop until I got a reaction out of her. At that point, she was crying, and I couldn't get through to her anyway, but yeah, whatever.
Right.
I
And
got
then
a reaction.
like, now you better stop crying. I'm going to give you something to cry
And I
about.
felt like shit afterwards. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And so a lot of parents will stay in that space, right? Like, I feel so bad. I'm like, yeah, so that's good that you feel bad, but then what can you do about it? So I had that moment the other night where my son was lying, right? He's 9. That's what they do.
Yeah.
And so before I started doing all this work, I'm like, oh, it's so bad because I had convinced myself that if you're lying when you're 9, you're going to grow up to be this horrible person. You're always going to lie. Nobody's going to trust you. You're not going to have.
But that's the threat, right? To try and keep them to stop. Yeah.
Yes, we tell ourselves these stories, but now it's like, okay, I knew he was lying. I'm not going to argue because I know that you're lying, right? So it's just, here's the decision. We're going to move on. So later that night, I'm like, I don't know. One of the questions that I ask myself each night is, are my kids going to bed feeling loved and respected? Right?
Yes.
So that night I was like, I'm not sure that he's feeling loved. Like, it wasn't like I was yelling at him. I didn't blame him when he said he didn't do it. I was like, okay, you know, and here's what we're going to do next, because we're not going to have this conversation. But I'm like, I don't know that he feels loved. So it was probably like 10:30, and he was supposed to be asleep for like an hour, and I go in there and I just give him a hug, and he starts bawling. And I'm like, baby, look, you seem so sad. And he was like, I was so sorry for lying. I didn't. I'm going to get in trouble. Like, completely broke down. And I was just like, see, this is why we don't have to do all of that. Like, I'm going to make you feel bad. I'm going to teach you a lesson. Like, kids know when they're that age, right? He knows right from wrong.
They know better.
Need me to tell him, but what I need to make sure that he knows is that he's loved, that he's respected, and that even when he makes bad decisions, I'm still going to love you, right? I'm still going to be here for you. So really helping parents to think about, at the end of the day, what do you want your kids to know? Right. Yeah. So the moms that I'm working with, it's like, yes, we're moms and yes, we're providers, but we are also teachers. Right. Yes. And at every moment you want to be asking yourself, like, what can I teach my kid in this moment? Or what am I teaching my kids? Right. Like, my daughter came downstairs. I'm doing an interview. I could have sent her back upstairs, like, get up. What are you doing? No. But I want her to know, like, yes, mommy's work is important, but so are you. Yeah. So now she's not sitting here acting crazy, jumping around. She might get up in a second. But I want her to know, like, I love you, right? Yes. And you're more important than whatever else is happening in this moment. Now, there are some times when it's like, you know, I can't have you interrupted, but I have to teach her how to act in that way, right? I have to teach her
how to recognize when,
If there's a red sign on the door, don't open the door. Right. Right? There was no red sign today, so yes, you can come down and hang out with mom.
No, not at all. This is it was meant to be a comfortable setting anyway. But I love everything you're saying because I've lived through all those things. I've seen all of those things. What was the shift for me in my parenting journey was I remembered what it felt like to feel alone, like I couldn't approach my mother and speak to her, and I needed to remove that. I needed to make sure, like you said, like, they need to understand that I love them regardless. I'm expecting them to make mistakes, but I'm also expecting them to come to me if they're feeling upset or uncomfortable or any of those things, because I would rather us sit down and talk about it than they hold that stuff for a while and not
Yeah.
have anywhere to go with it. I don't want it to
Right.
fester. I
Yeah.
know what it
Or
was
go
like
to the
when
wrong
it festered for
people.
me. Exactly.
Hmm.
And that feeling of not feeling alone, I think that's big in all aspects of our lives, whether it's how you feel about your body, how you feel about
Yeah.
New Year's resolutions because everyone else is in the gym, how you feel about eating healthy, how you feel about parenting, like all those things. You don't want to feel like
Everything.
you're on your own. You don't want to feel like, well, they're all doing this and I'm over here like, and I know better than anyone that I can beat myself up better than anybody else can. So before my
Yeah.
mom said anything, I knew how she was going to react. I was already doing it for her. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So the fact that you hugged your son, he burst into tears, you knew instantly that he'd been like kicking himself for a while already.
The whole time for an hour and a half. Like
Yeah.
we've been, yeah, yeah. And so I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that I actually went in there to make it
Yeah.
right, because that's what he needed in that moment. Like he needed to know, like it's okay. Like, yep, you lied. You didn't get in trouble, right? So that fear, let's help
Right.
erase that fear of if I tell the truth, you didn't get in trouble either way. Like you lied and
Right.
it wasn't anything that horrible that happened, and you
Right.
did this bad thing and nothing horrible happened. And so I realized, like when they feel that way, I have to do a better job of making them feel safe in that
Yes.
space,
Yes.
right? Like it's okay
Yes.
to screw up. It's okay to make mistakes. And with my oldest, I did a horrible job. So there was a time where she didn't, like you just mentioned, she didn't
Learning
feel,
curve, my love.
yes, she didn't feel comfortable talking to me.
Yeah.
And it got really dangerous for a minute.
Okay.
And she hasn't given me permission to talk about that yet. So
No,
hopefully it's
that's
coming
okay.
soon.
That's
But
enough. I'm pretty sure everybody
yeah,
can identify with that. Don't worry about it.
yeah. But I realized that was because that was the environment that I had created. And that's why I was like, there are so many other kids out there. And so what
Yeah.
also happened is that when I first started teaching, I was only 10 years older than my kids because I was teaching high school. And so now the schools where I'm working now, I have their kids, right? So I call them my grandkids
Yeah.
are in these
Yeah.
schools and they're acting just as crazy as their mamas and daddies. And I'm like,
Oh boy.
oh no, like, yeah,
So
so
the
I taught you
insight
how
you
to do
have.
math. Right. I'm like, oh, I taught you how to do math, but I didn't teach you the skills for you to pass down to your kids so that they wouldn't be in these schools acting crazy. And so I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I got to fix this. Like, I got to fix it. And so now I'm working with a lot of my former students who are now parents, like, yo, let's get
Nice.
this. Let's get
Yeah.
this together.
I
So
love that.
it's full circle now. It's like the next generation.
That's that's amazing though. That's how you can really see the impact you've had and the growth journey that you've had personally, like as you saw all these things happening, where you decided to change and start teaching what you were learning. I love that. And the fact that you've mentioned that, as coaches, yes, we are still human. Things still get to us. We still flip out.
Right.
I can teach you how to be peaceful all day long, but I also get upset sometimes. It's normal.
Right.
So that doesn't exclude us from all those things. We just have to, like, it takes us a little bit to kind of calm down for a second and then
Yeah.
reset and be like, all right, I can do better.
Yeah.
I'm done melting down now. I can start over.
Like I got
So,
this. But we have the
yeah,
tools now, right? So we know
yes,
how to change it around. We know how to make it right. And so I feel like everyone needs to be able to do that same thing, right?
exactly,
Yes, you're gonna get mad.
exactly.
I'm not gonna say like, and I've seen some things. I guarantee that if you do this program, you'll never yell at your kids again. I'm like, yeah, that's a lie. That's a lie.
How can you guarantee
That's a
that?
lie.
Not every kid is
Right.
the same.
That's a lie. They don't even know you. They don't even know that you yell
They just want you to buy it and they'll never
every
hear
day.
from you again. Yeah.
Exactly. What I will say is that you'll have some skills to help
Yes.
you yell less, right? And
Yeah.
then know what to do. Like when you do yell, how do you make it right?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. I
like you said,
love that.
It's a growth journey.
Yeah, man. So for everyone who's watching, Domari Dixon, based in Virginia right now, you
Yes,
have DomariDixon.com, correct?
I do. So, which
Currently,
is
are
still
you
being
doing
updated.
anything online or is it mostly in person, all of your programs?
So it's actually mostly virtual. So I had a
Okay.
Facebook group that just transitioned to a membership group.
Okay.
And we're doing trainings in there. So our training for this month is actually on writing a family mission statement.
Hey,
So
hey.
taking parents through those steps of identifying, so who do I want my kids to be? What does that look like on a daily basis? What do I have to do? What should we stop doing if we
Yeah,
want to get them there? And then just giving them a way to kind of track their progress around that and reaching those
that is
goals.
amazing. And you know
Yeah.
what? Talking about this, I see you possibly pairing up with Imani Aisha. I think we spoke to.
Yeah.
I did an interview with her a while back, but a mission statement I think would really help husbands and wives as well to kind of get on the same page, because chances are you were raised very differently from the way your husband's family was raised, and then y'all need to come together on what works and what you will and won't do with your kids.
Yes.
You have to create your own culture almost. So I love that. That's amazing. DomariDixon.com. Yes, you are updating it still, but keep checking back, please. You are more active on Facebook, correct?
Instagram. Yep, if you follow me on Facebook or on Instagram, there's a link. The link in my bio is now to join that group. So if you're interested in that, come over there and stop in there. Very and then there'll be info on Facebook as well.
Awesome. So for y'all, I can't even speak right now. So for all of the people,
go.
Oh, you're leaving us?
She's like, I gotta poop.
Okay, bye. Have a good day. So for anyone who's actually following, if you check in my stories, I've linked one of her posts, so you know exactly where to go find her. I will repost this on Facebook and tag you there as well. Please, 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 let's change the way we were raised and not pass it back down. Let's be a little more aware and a little more emotionally intelligent. And I love what you're doing. Yes. And you know what? Even if you're not in the Facebook group, if you're friends with Domari, she actually posts questions all the time on how would you deal with this situation? How would you? It gets you thinking at least. Like questions I've never had to answer before in my life. I enjoyed answering.
Yeah, and you're like, ooh, I don't like that.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, let me write that down though. So yes, I love it. Thank you so much. I know you gotta go. I will catch you again later. Guys, please follow her. Okay.
Guys,
great nuggets of parenting advice. Yeah, man.
Oh, you're welcome.
They're the love. I love you. Thank you so much. You take care. Okay, and we'll catch up with you a little bit soon.
Have a great night. I'll say.
Night. Yeah, it's night.
All right.
Good night. Y'all take care. Bye.